let's look at gasoline and oil. First off, read this disclaimer carefully. As you are probably well aware, there's been an absolute total crash in the prices of gasoline and oil. Reasons are obvious. Businesses have shut down, so there's very low demand, excessive supply. That also means that the current prices are artificially low, meaning at least for a temporary trade there could be some tremendous opportunities. Let's be perfectly clear about one thing. From a long-term perspective, looking 5+ years into the future, I am extremely bearish on fossil fuels. However, that does not mean there's not going to be opportunities, every now and then. And this current situation is simply excessively bearish. So this in front of you is the gasoline futures. We will also look at the USO ETF, because that's easiest for most people, because the futures market has all kinds of complications. So let's do some measurements. So if we measure, you can see here that this is the financial crisis. So obviously bear markets is very bad for gasoline prices. You can see that, interestingly, you do see that the gasoline futures, they reached a bottom here in December 2008. However, the bear market in stocks actually ended in March 2009. So it's quite interesting to see that, this bear market ended before. So that's something to take into account. Let's actually do some calculations here. Let's do the USO. That's the United States Oil Fund ETF. So as you can see, this shows us the statistical correlation, and you see back here in 2016 there's 96% positive correlation between the gasoline futures and crude oil, and at this point there is an 89% positive correlation. So it's not a perfect correlation, but they move very strongly together. So let's do some more measurements. So here we have recently had this crash here in 2014-2015, and we did see some recovery. But if we measure from this high here to this intra-week low, that's minus 83% plunge. RSI became extremely oversold here, reaching 18-ish. So you could make a strong case that a lot of the bad news are priced into this futures, this commodity. Because when the contagion stabilizes, then businesses will start to open up more. And even though I do think we will have a protracted bear market, that situation will still actually be more bullish for gasoline than the current setup, which is total shutdown. So yeah. Let's also see the daily data points. So here you can see that we are below most moving averages. You can see that we tested the 20-day moving average today because Trump came out with some positive news that there is some negotiations here with Saudi Arabia and Russia. Nothing like super confirmed yet, so be cautiously optimistic, but we did see a big move today. And if we just measure the recent move here from this low to the recent high, that's a 60% move, so that's pretty substantial. So let's now look at the ETF, the USO. The big benefit with USO is that It is an ETF, it is easily tradable. USO is also rather liquid, which we can actually look at. So let's get USO like that. And I can then show you how, so here we got it, yep. So the average daily dollar volume is 419 million US dollars, 2.3 billion dollars in assets under management. So it's tight, heavily traded, and yes, options are available. So yeah. So like, you can basically use options in this case, also like some kind of a sophisticated lottery ticket. So you could like buy like an out of the money call, and just as an alternative to playing the lottery. Because it is hard to like nail the bottom with these things. So here are the weekly data points for the USO. Could this be the bottom? Tough. It's hard to tell, but it is a possibility. Of course, what could become more bearish, that's if America is hit far harder than what's currently calculated. And there is a good reason to think that Corona will hit USA especially hard, because the studies show that people with pre-existing conditions are especially vulnerable towards Corona. The virus exploits those vulnerabilities. America is not famous for having a very healthy population, so all of the obesity, diabetes, all of these preconditions, and on top of it, the healthcare system is, it's not a very generous healthcare system. A lot of things have to be paid out of your own pockets, meaning you have the issue with many Americans not going to the doctor until they really need it. And at that point, there's all kinds of damage that's taken place. So yeah, there is reason to be a bit worried about how Corona will hit USA. So that means there could be further lockdown. So it actually is possible that we have not seen the worst of the lockdowns. Maybe even more businesses will be shut down. That will obviously be bearish for gasoline and oil. Then again, the price of these commodities, it is a result of the big players conspiring a bit as well. Because when the price goes too low for Russia, Saudi Arabia, and the other big producers, then they will basically talk and find a way to push the price up. They just will it, because it reaches a level where it's like, okay, this doesn't make sense. So that's basically my thesis. I do think that there will be a bullish opportunity here. We have seen some moves recently. The news at this point is not super positive. We do not have a clear, united confirmation. If we were to get that, you could definitively see a really sharp rise. So yes, I do think there will be a temporary opportunity here for gasoline and oil, being bullish those commodities. There are many ways to do it. My favorite would be the options market. But just to be perfectly clear, from a very long-term perspective, looking 5+ years into the future, then I am extremely bearish on fossil fuels. I do think that the pressures against it, it's simply too strong. There's simply too much innovation when it comes to these clean, alternative energies, and the development has been very, very rapid. Solar energy was a joke not too many years back, but now it is a serious thing. So I think that is the future. But in the meantime, we have to use fossil fuels. And yes, whatever you do, of course, you want to let the trend be your friend.